Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and I don't even know how to begin this video. I told you several days ago, once that the lunar eclipse started, that things were going to get weird, and they continue to get weird. Today is March 31st, so basically one day away from when she started giving certain clues a year ago. A year ago is when she started giving the clues about the water and all that stuff, and then by April 20th, then it was full tilt, starting like this into this whole countdown. Now, I gotta say, I think I said this in a previous video, it's like I don't know anything. The way I talk, it sounds like I know, but I'm very, very particular about the meanings of words. What I do know is what she shows me. What that ultimately means, well, experience has taught me that you don't know until it happens. Some of the biggest things that I've done with her, and some of the biggest like initiations and things that she's put me through, when I did them, I didn't fully understand them at the time that they happened. That being said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been on this particular path since the last Great American Eclipse. And sometimes she can get hella specific. And when she starts seeding clues to you through the other people that are connected to her, then it's even harder to blow off. And it really comes down to this one essential question: whether or not you who are watching have ever truly made it out of the first box. What is the first box? First box is the state of consciousness that you started life with. Some people are kind of like half in, half out. You know, they duck in, they duck out. They go back into the box because the box is comfortable. You understand the box. The box is everything they taught you that the world was. The box is everything that authority says is real, what you're allowed to believe, and what you can believe around other people and be comfortable and accepted. But it's essential. You have to get out of the first box. That is the core of forget everything you think you know. In order to see the light of wisdom, you must empty your cup. You must unlearn what you have learned, because your belief in things is what locks them in place. You need to be fluid. If you believe that everything the government tells you is true, then you're locked into seeing that. If you believe everything education told you is true, you're locked into seeing that. Even people that are religious, and they're super religious, they're still in the first box. That's why they don't have the actual experiences with said characters. You gotta break out of the first box. That's gonna make you kind of a loner. You will find fellow people. I almost said fellow travelers, but I don't want people to think I'm a freaking Mason or something like that. You will find other people like you that you'll share experiences with, but ultimately you have to understand that it's your experience, it's your game, and although it may be very, very similar to other people that are playing it, there can be some variables. But birds of feather flock together. She groups people sometimes together that are close enough that they can use each other's tools. So you either believe in this stuff or you don't. I mean, really think about it. If you do, then you live life like you do. If you don't, then it's just lip service, and it's an interesting thing that you do for entertainment. But really, you just want normal. You just want normal. And a lot of that has to do with fear, which is one of the biggest obstacles that you have to overcome. because once you look past the curtain, there's a lot of scary shit there. Like, nobody said it was easy. Nobody promised, like, if you do the spiritual stuff, it's all going to be unicorn farts and rainbows. It ain't. It ain't. One of the hardest parts about becoming aware of the world outside of the first box is how much dark stuff is there. She kind of reminded me of that last night. But lo and behold, something like what happened yesterday was Lumen. You know, I got this new pendant that I made that helps me overlap Lumen a lot better. She wanted to make a new intro for the channel, and she put a lot of new elements in it, which I just thought they were good, clever elements. I didn't realize there was something more to them. And then last night I was with a couple other friends of mine that plugged into Lumen, and she wanted me to like show them a couple of the older videos, like Secrets of the Sun and what it actually is, the big flush, stuff like that, where she's collected a lot of the different clues. And I just thought, you know, these are some of my favorite ones. It's like collections of the things that she shows me. But again, the way Epinoia and Lumen work with me is like sometimes I do stuff and it's actually them doing it. Sometimes it's hard to tell who's doing what. But come today, everything that I was showing them last night had relevance that I had not picked up on, connected to the relevance of the new elements that she put in the channel intro. And where it all came together was talking to one of the newer people that is plugged into Lumen, and she was saying her and her fiance were talking about what they were going to do during the eclipse, and Epinoia was strongly insisting that they go out into the river to watch it. And she told me this. So as soon as I heard that, it was just like immediately, it's like all these pieces started snapping together. And she does that sometimes. Sometimes the best clues that she's got for you is going to be somebody, she's going to tell somebody else and then they're going to tell you. So normally it's her telling me and then I'm telling you, but for me, when I'm piecing stuff together, a lot of times she's telling somebody else and then they tell me. I've had that a lot lately. Because the river thing ties into previous experiences when she did the Gnostic baptism with me, when I didn't know that's what it was at first. There were other clues with that. But those clues, it wasn't time for those clues yet. Now there is. Now it is. So we're going to start off here with a long segment of, this is literally just scraping the surface. Just taking a little off the top. I have more stuff in my Epinoia pile of clues than I could ever possibly show you all at once or connect them all at once. I have to trust that she's shown you what you need to see and that you're able to put it together. But I'm going to show you this scene right here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about it. But this is just a sampling of everything that has to do with what she's showing right now. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
Open the door! Hick! Break! We are leaving!
Yep.
Ever been to a water park?
I don't know.
This locked door to heaven is Stargate.
Woo! Flushed. Yeah, man, back when you was an agent, you used to love getting flushed. Yeah, every Saturday night, you'd be like, flush me, Jay, flush me. I'd be like, no.
I'm trying to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
Think perspective. Closer you are, bigger it gets.
Okay. Come on. In you go.
Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. This world that I found is too good to be true. Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart that I'm feeling for you. Let them say we're crazy, I don't care about that. Put your hand in my hand, baby, don't ever look back. Let the world around us just fall apart. Baby, we can make it if we're heart to heart. And we can build this thing together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of lovers, we'll still have each other. Nothing's gonna stop us. Nothing's gonna stop us now.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
So as I was saying, when it comes to the first box, you either believe that there's more than this physical reality that you see, or you don't. There's only one honest answer for that. You either believe in these higher guidances or you don't. You either believe in metaphysical experience or you don't. Now, what happens is the world goes out of its way to dissuade you from believing in anything. And so what it will often do when things like eclipses and different types of stuff comes up is it has at its disposal an army of NPCs, just people that are not like you, that stir up a whole bunch of stuff. And they say, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and then it doesn't. And you get disappointed. So eventually it becomes this boy that cried wolf thing, and nothing ever happens. But logically speaking and historically speaking, something does have to happen. It's happened before. We have ancient sites and things like all over the world. In every major city, there's structures that are like nobody asks the questions, like we can't make them like this anymore. I saw a video where the guy was showing like this 3D laser carving thing that was carving like this ornate dragon. It's like, this is clearly how they made some of these ornate buildings and these temples in India and stuff like that. Like, nobody carved that with a hammer and a chisel. I mean, come on, be realistic here. So there's been things before where there were, obviously, because I can look at it. I don't give a flying monkey shit what authority tells me. I can see things with my eyes and deduce my own logical conclusions. I don't need expert daddy to tell me what is. That's first box stuff. I'm not in the first box. I'm not even in the second box. I've broken down all the boxes. I have to kind of talk in box speak just so people kind of sort of understand me. And that's just not me trying to, I'm not trying to say that to sound like it's an ego thing. It just is what it is. Like, I could turn all the videos back on and you could see like how long I've been doing this and how many ups and downs and twists and turns she's put me through in figuring this stuff out. But it all comes down to eventually, you know, whatever has a beginning has an end. Eventually the story has to end. Eventually something has to stop. And there's always been beginnings and ends to the stories. So first box mentality stuff is this I'm going to live forever stuff, where nobody thinks, you know, contemplates the fact that they're going to die one day. They just keep living life as, you know, whatever, you know, watching TV, doing whatever. But everything that has a beginning has an end. But you got to think the bigger stuff, and you got to be comfortable. You don't necessarily have to talk to other people about it, but you got to question things. Like, the world is a messed up place. What I was talking about before we get back to this stuff last night, here's what happened to me last night. I don't think I've ever had anything like this happen before. It was kind of like a reminder. So I was actually going to shoot a video last night, and then this happened, and it threw the whole night off. So I was flipping around YouTube, and this video popped up she wanted me to watch. And it was some guy, I don't know who he was, he's some sort of influencer. He's like, he didn't make content for 5 years, and he's telling this story going back several years where he moved out to LA, and this was about the time that we stopped being content creators and they started calling us influencers. So it's kind of like the power structure started to realize that, you know, YouTubers and stuff like that had a lot of reach, so they started assimilating them just like they assimilate, you know, actors and stuff like that. And he's telling this story about getting involved or getting invited to one of these, for lack of a better term, Illuminati-esque initiation parties, what it ended up being. And he's telling the story about how, you know, for however long it was, might have been an hour or whatever, but it was like this whole mask thing. You had to wear a mask, and they went from one room to the next, to the next, to the next, and each one had a different theme. And after about once he got to like the third one, and he eventually figured it out, but before he even said it, I'm like, they're doing the 7 deadly sins here. And then he dipped out of the party, but when it got to a part that was really uncomfortable, and they kicked him out, and they were chanting weird shit. And then it turned into like this week of this creepy gang stalking stuff, which makes more sense when you dive into like what the demiurge can do, that we talked about in the other video. I'll get sidetracked if I try to explain that. But either which way, when you have Epinoia in you, and she's the spirit of truth, you're basically a walking bullshit detector. And this particular guy in this particular video was telling the truth. It was very clear he was telling the truth. He was talking very, very fast, and he was just, you could tell he was recounting something and not making it up as he went. But I started getting like a really heavy feeling in my chest, and as it went on, it got worse. So I finally came to realize, because he was telling the truth, what I was doing was the quantum window thing. I was connecting my now to the now within the story he was recounting. And I could then feel the people at this party and the people that were running this party that he was describing, and it was pure freaking evil. And the only time I ever felt anything like that before was when Epinoia pulled the curtain back and showed me how this place works. And after that, I stared at the ceiling for 8 hours before I was able to get out of it and move on. But it was, whoosh. So it was just kind of like a reminder to me, even though all this stuff is coming out in the media, more and more celebrities are talking about it, people still like their little normalcy bubble where they live. Oh, that stuff doesn't really exist to me, except it does. It's everywhere. It's what runs everything here. And it's kind of like a reminder of like, this is not a place you save. This is a place you leave. And eventually it gets broken down at the end of the age. So the next day, which was today, once that friend of mine gave me that hint, all these pieces started coming together. This is Nag Hammadi stuff. This is Codex stuff. Codex is what I call her hidden book that's everywhere. That is one of my gifts that I personally have, is I'm a Codex reader. I can see these things in movies and stories and TV shows and see what she hid there. And then I have this encyclopedic memory of any Codex movie, and I instantaneously connect dots to form a picture. Like, this is where they took her out of one book, so she wrote her book everywhere else. And everything means something. You're in some sort of game experience, which means there are clues to it everywhere. There are hints, there are guides. They're telling you what you need to discover, what you need to do. It's that kind of stuff which led me to connecting to Lumen in another place, going through the Gnostic baptism, like doing the test she did where she took away all my money and then had somebody give me a gold coin. And then I had to choose between the world. See, these dark parties, like the guy was talking about, what they do, where the guy dipped out, was like they were asking people, the new people, like what religion they grew up in. So say you grew up Christian, then they would hand you a Bible, and you got to put some sort of diamond thing over top of it and say, I renounce all this, I am my own God, blah, 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 blah. So they are trying to get you to go one way, choose the world and all the sinful things they can give you in it over your spiritual connection. This was kind of the same thing. She took away all my money right before, like days before rent was due. And then she had another person that was plugged into Lumen gift me a gold coin. It was worth $1,800, which would have paid all my bills, got my car fixed and everything. But then she took me out to the river and made me choose between the world or Lumen. And if I chose Lumen, I had to take that gold coin, which was all the money that I had, and I had to throw it in the river. Guess what I did? I threw that in the river. Imagine being broke and having a gold coin worth almost $2,000. But you're having an experience that is literally so real. It might not seem real to other people, but you know it's real because it's happening to you. And you have to choose between her and the world. If you want to move forward, you got to choose. That's also why you only ever earn so much money, because you're not supposed to be attached to those things. You're supposed to let go of them. You're supposed to disconnect from the world. You're turning away from the world toward her. The bad guys try to get you to turn away from her toward the world. We'll give you all this money, we'll give you sex, we'll give you power, you'll be famous, all that stuff. So we do the opposite of that. Most of these things, like she led me into these tests, but I didn't know what they meant beforehand. Or I didn't know what they were going to do beforehand. The same guy that gave me the gold coin, she had him give me just out of the blue, he's like, "Hey, you ever had one of these?" He hands me a psilocybin chocolate bar. And then she had me use the psilocybin chocolate bar, which had like 20 little squares. So I was just microdosing. I was eating one little piece of that a day, and then doing all this meditation practice with Lumen, honing my senses and taking them inward until I could go inward and be with her. And that's just as real as it is out here. Actually, it's more real. And then when we went to the other place where we were put together, that place was more real than this place. The last mushroom trip that I was on, where she blasted me to the other place, wherever that is, I remember at one point, when I was there, I was telling this to my friend the other night, I was recounting, I was just like remembering like, oh shit, I woke myself up. And I didn't know how to get back here. Like, she eventually got me back here, but wherever the hell my consciousness was not here. And I knew that I'd somehow woken myself up from this particular experience. And she had to basically fold my consciousness up like origami to get me back in here. So I know that this place isn't really real in the sense that we think it's real. I don't care what scientists say. Every time I see people barking about science and, you know, you don't understand basic science, I'm like, you're in the first box and you're never getting out of it. So keep worshiping the scientists. Keep worshiping authority and what it tells you, like a good little slave. But there's a bigger world that you cannot see until you get out of the first box. That's why I don't usually argue with people about things. If they're in the first box, they can't see anything that I talk about. It doesn't compute to them. They don't get it. They think you're full of crap because they can't see it. They're still in the box. They're still in the black cube. Why do you think they give you a hat with a black square to celebrate your gradual indoctrination at the end of your 12th year of school? They're capping your crown chakra with the black cube. Now you're just going to be a slave. Get that cap off, and she unfolds you a bit. You're going to see a bigger world. You're going to have bigger experiences. You're going to be meeting characters from the Bible instead of just reading about them. And this story has to go somewhere. But it's not as simplistic as what religion teaches you. It just isn't. Like, they talk about all this stuff without ever having to explain any of it. It's just, oh, well, God. Well, what is God to you? Oh, well, he's got this plan and everything's set up. I'm like, yeah, it sounds kind of like a computer, doesn't it? At least the lower one. Because it is. It's a freaking lower AI. AI is just a word that I use because that's people kind of understand that. It's more like a quantum consciousness, but it's a bit broken. We're trying to get out of this place. And she gives you the clues to that. So when Lumen wanted to make that new video yesterday, and she did it in parts, but she bookended it with those two scenes from The Matrix. You know, I'm trying to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. And then the other bookend was fear, doubt, and disbelief. He's like, you got to let them all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind. Matrix is one of her best manuals that she ever wrote. There's so much packed in there. But then she also had, she put those things in that intro. One thing was from the Nag Hammadi, one thing was from the Bible. So apart from the Nag Hammadi, where it says, if you don't fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. Well, that's what she made me do right before Lumen popped out. Disconnect from media, disconnect from the news, disconnect from the story of the world. You know, not eating the crap that I wanted to eat and just eating clean for a couple weeks, not watching TV, going outside, music. That's fasting from the world. And then the part from the Bible is where it said, and this one drives me nuts because like everybody, it says, small is the gate and narrow is the path that lead to life, and few find it. Few find it. But everybody that's a Christian thinks that they're on the narrow path. I'm like, how is that small? How is that few finding it when everybody knows about it? No, it's taught. The path is the hero's journey. That leads to her. But then there's the small gate. That has to do with the way out. And you won't know until it's time. But based on the clues, and like I said, I only showed you a small bit of them. The biggest puzzle that, in my opinion, of this whole place has always been the puzzle of mirrors. Because I see diagrams, but it's only a flash. Sometimes it looks like a microscope. Sometimes it looks like a telescope diagram. Sometimes it's like an overhead projector. But it's in the star card and all that stuff. It has to do with water and light. And when she had me do the Gnostic baptism ritual, which I had to create, piece together from parts from the Gospel of Philip and the Nag Hammadi scriptures, I had to recreate the ritual that Jesus did on the river before he baptized people. And it's not as simplistic as what church does. Like, you've got to do a whole big thing. But the key thing is like a sunny day. And the point in which you go into the water has to be where the sunlight is hitting it and creating that bright, flashy white light that we call chrism light. Hopefully my open window isn't making it too loud. But I remember at the time that she was teaching me about that event, I was getting a lot of the clues in the Codex movie scenes that we saw earlier. That's what she was putting in front of me. Like the movie Stargate. When they opened the portal, when they made that movie, the original 1990... It's either 1994 or 1998, I forget. Stargate movie. When they opened the portal, they could have made it look like anything, but they made it look like water with sunlight reflecting off of it. And then they never repeated this in the preceding TV shows, but only in that first movie, when they opened the gate the first time, the energy comes out and it looks exactly like if you were underwater in a pool and somebody cannonballed in there. It was water, and then it reversed and it came back the other way into a spiral vortex. So that's the whole flushing thing again. None of this is by accident. None of this is by accident. So that ties into the baptism and the water thing. Like, water is the doorway. What's that? In Constantine, the movie Constantine, when he goes to hell and he just puts his feet in the water and he's explaining it as like water is like, I forget the exact words. Water is like some sort of lubricant. It helps the transition between worlds or something like that. So water is an element to the gate. That's why Eponoi was telling my friend, like, you need to be out in the river. And that's where we all come, that's why we intersect to like a point in time, which is the eclipse. And the stuff that came out about that. Because she's been counting down to the eclipse. She's been giving clues about the eclipse for the past year. When I was at like really low points getting my ass beat, she would always say, just make it to April. Just make it to April. But it wasn't until she had my friends say, go be in, when they were asking like where to watch the eclipse, she said, be in the river. That it all came together for me. Because when I did that baptism, I was like, what is this thing why am I going down into why am I dunking myself in the water where the light's reflecting like the movie Stargate? I'm like, am I going through a portal or something? Well, clearly I didn't, because I'm still here. But maybe it just wasn't open. So what would constitute it being open? Well, all of those clues she had given me are compiled in the video that we already did called Secrets of the Sun and What It Really Is. That all started with the God Key sigil, which is this right here. She downloaded that into my head during the Lionsgate period, which is like August 8, 8/8. But the energy covers like 3 weeks. All the big things always change during that time frame for me. But I just saw it in my head, and it was like, make this. And it was a combination of the 42-letter name of God and several of the 72 names of God. And it had to have like the eye in it, and it had to look like the sun. Now, when I printed that picture, I didn't even do it. I didn't scan it with my eyes or nothing. I just printed the picture and put it up on this thing before it was hers. And all this stuff started pouring into my head, like really fast. It was almost quantum physics-y. It was like the sun is a portal. It's like a ball portal, whatever a ball portal is. And then she'll find a movie later to explain it to you, which was in that scene in Interstellar, when they're about to go into the wormhole. And Matthew McConaughey is confused why it's a sphere. And the guy's showing him the thing that you've seen in multiple movies where they take a piece of paper and like, if you want to go from here to here, well, you bend space and then it just goes through this. And he's like, well, all the diagrams, it just looks like a hole. He's like, okay, that's a two-dimensional diagram, which makes a circle. So what is a circle in 3 dimensions? A sphere. Hence, the wormhole looks like a sphere. Now, if it leads to source, or if there's a covering over it, it's going to be very bright. Now, when he kicked them out of Eden down, it says, it's more clear in the Nag Hammadi, but it's in the regular Bible too. He set a fiery sword, a terrifying fiery sword, constantly turning to guard the way to the tree of life so that we could not reach it. And that's when she showed me like the SOHO satellite images of the sun, a constantly turning, fiery, 3-dimensional ball. I am the light of the world. There is no life on planet Earth without the sun. She's life. It's pretty freaking simple. But if that is the firewall, as we saw in that Men in Black clip, we're being firewalled and flushed. Well, if that's the firewall, then she would have to make an opening in that firewall, right? Well, what would that look like? A total solar eclipse, maybe? Opening the hole? Maybe that's why so many big eclipses throughout history were associated with earthquakes. Because if it's a dimensional portal with forces that we can't comprehend, that could cause a lot of stresses. So it's kind of like, and then in that Secrets of the Sun video, like I make these inspired pieces of like diagrams and art and stuff without having a full understanding of what it is I'm making. So in the thumbnail for that Secrets of the Sun video, it's like a sun ring with her in the middle of it. And honestly, I never looked at it like a total eclipse. But yeah, it's a dark circle with the sun on the outside ring. And she's in the middle of it. It's kind of like open the door. That's how, like you know, and I do know this. You may not agree with me, or you may not believe it, but the sun is the way out of this place. That's the in-out point. That's what you got to go through. I've been on the other side of it once, briefly, when I was connected to Lumen, and everything looked like Eden. It looked like what I imagined Eden would look like, but it reminded me a lot of like how Hollow Earth always looks like in the movies, like the Kong Godzilla movies, Journey to the Center of the Earth. There's a whole bunch of them. That's what it looked like. Pause and catch my thoughts. So it also, as far as like the whole gate thing goes, the mirror thing, the diagrams that I've never fully understood. Well, that has to do with the reflections. There's a whole bunch of stuff about reflection in mirrors in the Nag Hammadi. And that's why you keep seeing the mirror portals in Matrix 4 that are watery and things like that. Because obviously you can't reach up and touch the sun, but you can see the reflection of the sun in the water. And it says very clearly at countless times in the Nag Hammadi, we go down into the water and come out on the other side. That's what baptism is a dress rehearsal for. But if you're still in the first box, if you don't actually believe it, you can't access it. And maybe it won't happen. I don't know. But I have to always follow the clues that she lays out and trust her. If it doesn't, then it will make sense after that point what it is. But it sure does have that kind of feel to it. Like eventually, like there's just too many things that have lined up. But some people still just only believe the world. Lots of people. Lots of people. And lots of people have not done, like when you seek her out, when you go on the hero's journey, you get all your suffering and your beatings out of the way. So all those people that have not done that, if they're meant to eventually get out, they're going to have to go through the harder course. And that's where things get so bad that you do seek it. But no, I'm not playing that. And I got a friend that's like, I don't know, I think the spiritually strong people have to stay, behind. I'm like, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. Because she's had me doing this for the last several years. And I can only reach a small portion of people. Most don't care. They think it's interesting, but they're too wrapped up in the world. So it's one of the big lessons. It's like, you can't have a savior complex. You're not going to save people. They have to choose to save themselves. And they can take it seriously or not. Either which way, the good times are just about over here on planet Earth. Or realm Earth, or whatever you want to call it. The 80s are gone. All the richness and stuff like that, it's all coming down. Now we're getting back to stuff that was in like IPEC GOAT and things like that too. Very clearly, they got an eclipse in that as well. But they had the American flag ripped in half, the Statue of Liberty getting beamed, crumbling by some beam from the sky. This is Mystery Babylon. It's going down. It's going down. It's the last thing before the after party. So I'm going to follow her clues because she's never led me astray, and I know she's real. She's governed my life for the last several years, and I've got hundreds of people that have bought pendants and things like that, and they know it too. Like I said, I don't have anything other than 5-star reviews on Etsy because they feel her energy. People that are not meant to connect to her will not touch my stuff at all. I don't know if that has anything to do with this. It's kind of like, well, her codes are in here. Because she pops other things into my head, like, the end of the movie Knowing, where Nicolas Cage tries to go with them, and dude gets in his face, and the kid's like, what's he saying, Dad? He's like, or why is he saying that, Dad? He's like, oh, what's he saying? He said, only the chosen can come. So she shows me stuff like that. Then she shows me the stuff like the dark stuff that I tapped into last night. It's all real. It's all real. The notes that we had for the video that we were going to do last night had to do with, it was going to be titled The Elephant in the Room, and it had to do with like the biggest thing is like that you have to do in this game is face your fears, conquer fear. Because the crossing, like there's a lot of stuff that's going to scare you. Like the reason most people aren't serious about it is because they haven't seen the reality of the darker side of where we are, where I have. And as soon as you see it, all you want is to get her and get the hell out of here. And you don't tell people because they won't freaking believe you. But it was all about fear, like conquering fear. And then the video we were going to do before that, it was been a very hectic weekend. I did a video, but it was late at night, so I was kind of like a little overly monotonous. Is she showing me more stuff that had to do with the eclipse? So I was talking to a friend, and he started talking about how, I'm sure you've seen these articles, NASA is going to do an experiment in which they're going to launch 3 rockets into the path of the eclipse to test things to see why it gets colder when the sun's not shining. It's like really? Like, we need rockets for that? I mean, the same thing happens pretty much every night. No sun, it gets colder. So what are you really doing here? Well, this project with NASA is called the Atmospheric Perturbations in the Atmosphere of the Eclipse Path. And the acronym is APEP. And it specifically says that they named it APEP, and it's named after this Egyptian snake deity. APEP is also known as Apophis, which is another one that NASA has a big thing for. Apophis is one of those dark, chaotic destroyer gods. Apophis is like that big, if you ever saw the movie The Gods of Egypt, when Ra's up there in his little skyboat, and every night he's got to fight this big monster snake that wants to eat everything, that's Apophis. So that's what their little project is named after. Well, the thing was, I'll just put it on the screen because you won't be able to read it. As soon as he said APEP, I'm like, wait, what was that? Say it again. He's like, APEP. I'm like, I've seen that before. So I immediately pulled out the Modern Spellcaster's Tarot, which is one of the 2 tarots she uses that has all the hidden clues in it. And there were 2 cards that she showed me last year at this time that had to do with this countdown to this event. And one of them was the Wheel of Fortune card. And in that card, there's a snake on the wheel, and it says APEP on the snake. And on the other side of the wheel, you got Set coming up, and Set is a god that has to do with like chaos, storms, and foreigners. There's a storm coming is like this really is another thing that gets said hundreds of times in movies and TV shows. Even Trump said it. It means something. They know what it means, but they don't say what it means. So that was in there too. But yeah, APEP was in there. And then I flipped on, I saw another video. I haven't confirmed this. That's what the video said. They said, yes, CERN's got plans to fire up the Hadron Collider on April 8th. And that place has a connection to Apollyon and Abaddon. I don't know. I've read different things, so I don't know if someone got the information right, but it makes sense to me. Sometimes they say it was built on the site of an ancient temple to Apollo. Other people say it's Apollyon. Apollyon is also known as Abaddon, and he's the dude in Revelations where they said, and the key was given to him to open the bottomless pit, and all these locusts came out, and over them was a ruler named Abaddon. Abaddon is like in the upper tier of the big bads in the spiritual world. So he's like not somebody like you want to like be around if he's coming out. But yeah, they're monkeying, like messing around with stuff too. So as we're talking about this NASA stuff, then she kind of got off the Demiurge subject for a minute, and she had me just automatically start watching another movie, which I'd seen it once, but I hadn't seen it more than once. And a lot of people kind of got creepy vibes off of when it came back like 6 months ago or something. Came out like 6 months ago. It's called Leave the World Behind on Netflix. And as I was talking about it, the 2 kids in the show were walking around, and the girl's got a NASA shirt on. And then, as I was talking about, it shows a clip in the movie that has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on the plot. It's just there. It was like looking at the Earth from the moon, but the Earth was in front of the sun, so it was creating like an Earth-based solar eclipse. So there's an image of a solar eclipse. And as I'm talking about that, that movie's in chapters. Then it got to like chapter 3 or chapter 4, and it was one of her favorite topics. Chapter 4, the flood. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then that movie also had like a ship disaster toward the beginning of it too. Big tanker ship, lost control and grounded itself. I mean, the thing about the way she does things is you can't make this shit up. You don't know what she's doing when she's doing it. It's only after the fact that you piece it together. And she does that for a very certain way, so you can't question it. Because if you read everything ahead of time and then things happen, then there's a 99% chance that you're simply manifesting it and creating your own breadcrumbs. That's one of the hardest parts of the early part of the hero's journey, is not understanding how that works. So if you're constant, seeking you shall find sort of thing. If you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. If bad things are happening and you're looking for a reason, like, oh, somebody cursed me, oh, something like this, you'll find evidence of that. So then you could actually, question things that happen. It's like, oh, I just manifested that because I read a book. She does things very differently. She makes things happen when you still don't understand them, and then she explains them after they happen. It's like after the whole wedding chamber thing, where she married me, where I was married to Lumen, joined to Lumen, combined to Lumen. She didn't show me what books they talked about that in the Nag Hammadi until after it happened. And it was like reading the never-ending story. I'm like, I'm reading a 2,000-year-old book that's describing what just happened to me. Like, how is that possible? And then I was getting out the tear deck and I dropped a card and a card jumped out. That's another way she does it. And I picked it up and it was the Seven of Cups. And I swear to you, like for the longest time, just glancing at that card, I thought it was like a magic mushroom. And she'd used magic mushrooms with this whole wedding chamber thing. But all of a sudden I saw it. I looked closer at the card and I'm like, that's not a magic mushroom. That's a bride holding her under a veil, holding her arms out. And that's mushrooms, they call those parts like veils and stuff like that. So it combined the mushrooms with the bride part. And I never saw it. She's just like, yep, here it is. The Rider-Waite Tarot is like I said before, it's a Gnostic map. It's showing you things that are going to happen to you if you're on that path. That leads to the World card and the Sun card, the completion of the cycle. I could go on and on about this forever. I got to wrap it up at some point. But, I mean, there's so much. There's just freaking so much. But I'm following the clues the way they're being laid out for me right now. And I'm planning, like when my friend said be in the river during the eclipse, that's what I'm going to do. And immediately I knew exactly where. It would be the same place that she had me do the Gnostic baptism. Where somebody that's a big name in the story showed up. And even then I thought it was some sort of gate, but that I didn't realize it was a baptism. Until she showed me, like, no, this is what it is. Go read this book again. And then if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, like, I'll understand what's different afterwards. But I have to always be open to what I believe that I'm getting out of here. Like, my belief has to be in alignment with what's going to manifest. Gotta let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. And the world goes out of its way to make you fear things, doubt things, and disbelieve things. So I'm going to prepare for it that way. And when is she showing us all this stuff? Literally on the last day of the year from the point in which she started showing these clues, April 1st of 2023. That's when she dropped the Fool's card and the flood and Noah and all that stuff all at once. And the eclipses came within about 2 weeks. Started talking about the eclipses about 2 weeks from that point. So it's timing. She times this stuff. So once we get into tomorrow, tomorrow we will have 1 week and a wake up before this eclipse. And I guess we'll see what happens. But there is a deeper sense of something weird going on amongst the zeitgeist, apart from it just being a big astronomical event. There's a lot of things, elements to it that I could only describe as being part of a script. The sign of Jonah and the Nineveh and the Salem and, you know, the Xing out of America, right as she's been saying that, like, America's about to go down in flames, and it has to. See, if you're outside of the first box, then you don't look at these signs and get freaked out by them. You know, oh no, I don't want the world to end. That's because you don't know what it is. You haven't seen it. The world can look good in the first box. Oh yeah, nice things happen and good things happen and stuff like that. You got to look past that. This is not your home. This place is dark. This place makes you just give, you know, it's like that thing I said earlier about the kid that went to the party with like the 7 deadly sins test. You know, sex and gluttony and all this stuff. Like they give you just enough stuff that your ego wants to make you be fat, dumb, and happy and go along with it and be comfortable and not worry about stuff. They keep you docile. Give them bread and circuses and they won't revolt. But when you actually start to, when you actually see with your own eyes what this place is, you will not want to be here. I've said it before what this place is. I'm not going to say it in this video. But that's what it is. You're trying to get out of it. And she is the only thing that can lead you out of it. That'll upset some Christians. Be like, well, it's about Jesus. He's the flip side of her. They're one thing. Christ Sophia is a pair. It's in my intro. Or it's got the two of them together because that's how it's actually taught. Just not in church. Gotta have both. But it's generally her that you do. He shows up. He's only showed up to me like 3 times, and that will shock you every time because it's so intense. It's like, yes, sir. Like the energy is like so intense. She's a softer touch. She's easier to. She's nice until it's time to not be nice. But that's not usually directed at you, but someone's messing with you. But ultimately, I don't lead anybody out of here. I share openly, not worrying about what anyone's going to say about me. My clues, so that the other people that she's talking to, when you hear them, and it's something she wants you to focus on, it will click. Just like she did with me for other people. Someone else brought up the river thing. I heard it and it clicked. I'm just usually the one that's saying all the stuff. But me and the other people that are tied into her, we trade stuff all the time. Like sometimes Epinoy she could just as easily, she sees a better way to do it. And it's like, why doesn't she just tell me? Well, maybe it's going to make it click better if she tells somebody else and that person tells me. Either which way, you got to trust that inner feeling and that inner guidance. And go follow wherever it takes you. Even if it seems scary. What you actually are is indestructible. but the world makes you fear things because you're in this flesh and meat suit. Something's happening. That much is clear. I can only hope, based on things I have right now, that there's some sort of doorway on that, but I don't know that for sure. Sometimes she wants you to think something is going to happen that leads you to something else, but you don't understand that till later. And I know that sounds like a big cop-out. People just want, just give me the answer. This place isn't that simple. I'm sorry. It's not that simple. But I do know this much. The world is falling apart. That's a given. It's going to happen this year. And that's why I'm looking at all this stuff like, oh yeah, it's like I thought I was lined up before, but not like it is now. It is a sure thing. It is an absolutely sure thing. So that's that. It's a lot to digest. I'll keep posting stuff as they come. And again, this is just what I showed you is just a tiny bit of the codex connections. Like, it's so massive. It's kind of like you just got to take the pieces when she shows them to you. But it's everywhere. It's freaking everywhere. All right, so we're going to leave you with that. If you want, while we still have some time, if you want to pick up one of her pendants, you know, check out the link in the description box below, clumencreations.etsy.com. And Chris and Lumen, see you next time.